what we'll start with, because we have a 7:30 hearing, is the enforcement order for the community center project, VFW, for an update.
Yeah, and I talked with, they are all, because of the community center, they're actually, most of them were there. Stephen Saucier is at the community center dedication. I did talk to Dave Kennedy on Monday and Sean tonight, and Dave was asking about whether or not they could put gravel down in that area. I told them he'd have to file a determination for that, because I thought that was kind of new work, because it was my understanding the agreement was they were going to just grass that top area. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what they're leaning toward. I do have pictures in my report. The grass is starting to grow in pretty good on the wetland side at any rate. And they're still kind of, I think, trying to get going with putting some loam in there. And they're not quite done. I know we had talked about doing a fence kind of along the edge there. And I'm not sure that there's agreement on that. When I talked to Sean today, he's like, what? I never heard of a fence. So we'll see. They need to talk among themselves and decide what they want, I guess. I said I thought the board wanted something there along the edge to make sure that there was no additional stuff being dumped back there.
And Mary, how is their grass coming in?
Why don't I show a picture? I will share my screen. So it's looking better, I think. At least this is the side next to the wetland.
Oh, great.
That side looks good. I think all the rain the last week has helped. This side next to the ball field, I'm not sure that they seeded that side. It's not as critical, but that doesn't look quite as good. But at least the wetland side is looking fairly stable.
Excellent. Yeah. Does anyone have questions about the VFW Community Center project? So, Mary,
I'm just wondering if the commission would consider a row of boulders rather than a fence, since it looks like they got some boulders to play with.
Yeah, they have a bunch of boulders there too. Yeah, I think the fence, was the suggestion of Stephen. I think boulders would be fine. Maybe boulders, either boulders and bounds, or maybe they put some markers on the boulders. I don't know how well they would stick to the boulders. Or Sean suggested they can make their own little sign. I don't know about that, but
if they use boulders, I think they should be bigger than the ones we see in the picture.
Yes, they do. Some of them are 1 foot, some of them are a little bigger, but yeah, the little ones, they have, it doesn't look, it's just kind of like piles. It's almost turning into a stone wall that's not very well laid. It's like a bunch of, and that's fine if they want to leave it like that. It provides some kind of a edge demarcation.
What does everyone think about putting bounds in versus markers for the bounds on the rocks?
I don't think it's a bad idea to put markers on the rocks, but there should be markers somewhere where, regardless of whether they're bounds or on the rocks, but just have markers so other people know they can't, just be dumping stuff back there.
I think the rocks would have to be big enough that someone could take them out and take the marker bound on stone with them for their desk or something.
This is Alan. I think that the marker should be independent of the rocks, because the rocks can easily be moved at any time. So if you want something that's independent.
I agree with Alan. Something independent of the rocks. We have bounds all over town. That's what people expect to see.
Do we have any other discussion about the bounds versus stones or both?
Just one question, Mary, is the equipment still on the property? That loader that?
I think, I'm not sure actually. I think it's still there because they still have a little pile of dirt.
Because they could easily move, larger boulders around with that thing. Wouldn't cost them anything.
Is their pile of soil still there?
There's a little pile. Yeah.
So with that said, should we continue their discussion until our next meeting?
Yeah, you might want to give them a month. I'm not here for the next meeting.
Okay. We won't want you to miss this.
I think the July meeting is July 12th.
Hank, how about if we put them on July 12th?
And actually, Sean today said that their next kind of VFW group meeting isn't till like the 5th or something.
Oh, okay.
So they need to kind of figure out what they want, it sounds like.
Could we give them some guidance, though?
Sure.
Fence plus bounds versus, boulders plus bounds versus fence. Anybody want to weigh in on that, or do we want to just wait?
I think that makes sense, Mike.
Yeah, it's funny. In talking to Stephen, he was saying, well, I want a fence so people won't put brush back there. And then Sean was like, well, if you have a big, tall fence, they're going to want to throw trash back there. So I was like, you're probably both right.
Could we give them a couple of options, whether it's the fence and markers or the markers and large stones?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Just so they know that these are the combinations that we would prefer.
Excuse me, did we ask them for a fence? I can't remember.
Yeah, I was trying to remember how that conversation went today too, when Sean was asking me. I feel like Stephen had suggested the fence because he wanted one.
Right. I don't think we care about a fence, do we?
Yeah.
We just care about bounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think we did mention having some type of signage, which would say wetlands, no dumping.
Yeah.
And where that would go.
Well, they can propose where they want that to go.
Yeah.
And maybe how many signs.
All right, so I'll send them an email suggesting that, well, a fence is okay, I think. There needs to be signage, and we would also be fine with boulders with some bounds interspersed.
Excellent. And I would say putting them on the 12th at 7 p.m. would be a good thing. There are 7 p.m. person for now. So, any other discussion? And since I have a little bit of time, we should probably hear from Bill Tesmer since she's here to talk about beavers. So, Bill, what would you like to tell us?
Well, this is the third time that I've applied for a permit to trap the beavers. This is going to be an ongoing problem. I've been told they're coming up from Milford, with all the development that's going on. And but anyway, here we are today, and I'm about one more dam away from having a flooded backyard.
Mhm.
So I thought I'd be proactive and get going on this.
Yes, this picture is at the edge of his yard. The wetland is clearly flooded, and you can see there's several little dams up and down. And this is up, if anyone knows, he's 93 Elm Street, up 2 houses or just up the street a little bit along the power line. And Bill, I was wondering, since the National Grid access road is completely flooded out here, whether you might want to talk to them. I don't know whether if they'll pay to get the beaver dam out. You can't get across the road. It's like got 3 feet of water on it.
Yeah, it's my understanding that belongs to the Youngs, but I understand what you're talking about because National Grid does own a parcel that starts at the road and goes back. But we were working in that area last time without any problem.
Just to mention that if you're considering trapping, that would be talking to the Board of Health. And if it's just something to regulate the water in the area, that would be our area to contact.
Well, I would like to request the, well, let me just list everything. I'd like to trap and remove the beavers, breach the dams, and I don't know if Mary got a picture of their house that's in the that body of water there under the power lines. But
Not a very good picture.
that needs to be destroyed. Because as my trapper said, he said it's a home waiting for the new beavers to move into. And I don't want to help them in any way.
Bill, have they
Yes.
been in the area for a while, or is this pretty recent activity that's coming up by your property?
Well, I noticed that body of water was getting higher under the power lines. And this year I heard frogs that I don't usually hear. And I walked down there and I saw that it was all flooded behind my property. So I decided to be proactive about this.
Sure. So sounds like they're just starting to expand recently. They haven't been there for a while.
Yeah, the stream, as you know, behind me is an intermittent stream. And believe me, with the general drought that we've had, it should only be a trickle right now. And it's, as Mary will attest, it's flooded.
Yeah, this is Tom Django. The beavers have been there off and on over the years. So they were there some years ago. They got trapped out. A new batch moved in. I think there's actually two houses in the pond, an old one and then the new one they just built. It's a spot they like. There's really no place for any type of water device the way that's set up. But I do believe National Grid would, because I think National Grid trapped them out the first time. If maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought they're the ones that took care of them a few years ago. So you might be able to have them do it for nothing. But, I'm not sure of that.
Well, knowing how the utility companies work, they'll probably just take care of what's right in front of them. But the part that's going to affect me is obviously down behind me. And I don't think they're going to come down there. That property belongs to Seth Woods. So clearly they're not going to take care of that.
Well, that's not necessarily true because I know they have to have access to their power lines. My understanding is they have the right to go in there and remove them because they cannot, they have to keep the power going. They have to keep the grid going. So I believe they can do that. And my understanding was they're the ones that trapped them out before. So I'm just suggesting you might try calling them. It just may save you a bunch of money or something. But, that I think is your best bet. And when they do it, they will breach the dam once they trap the beavers out.
Well, I've paid to have the beavers removed twice. I did in 2009, and I did again in 2015. So I can't comment on what the utility companies have done or not, but I'm thinking that the way they work, they move like a glacier. So if that's the case, my backyard's going to be flooded, and it's going to get near my septic system, and that's really the crux of this whole thing.
I believe if you want to remove the dams, that requires a permit from us or from the state, for the Wetlands Protection Act.
And Tom, you were saying that any kind of water control device probably wouldn't work here.
No, not there. It's it's just it's a bunch of series of dams. It's a relatively flat piece. It's not very deep. It's just big. It's just big. And if you'd have to actually put pond levelers across the road, which I don't think would be acceptable. Because the dam, in one of the other pictures, you can kind of see where the dam is, not in this one, but okay, in this picture here, the road is actually to the right where that small water is. Yeah, that's the road right there, and that's the berm where the brush is growing. That's the berm that they're building on, and so the pond levelers would have to literally go across the road, and then you still have dams downstream from that. I'm very familiar with this location, so that's why I don't think you could actually have pond levelers go across the road.
Is there any potential for the road to be flooded by beavers?
It is flooded now.
Yeah, it's already flooded.
It's already flooded. This picture is from closest to the Elm Street, and if you went further looking in, you'd see it's flooded a lot more.
Here's the other side of the road, Chris, and it goes all the way. I'm kind of standing on it here, as close as I can get.
Yeah, so you've got this dam here. There's even, I think, another one below it, and then the one we were just looking at is above it.
If the beaver activity poses a potential for flooding the road, then it becomes more of our issue to deal with.
Well, it won't flood Elm Street. It will just flood the road that runs up through the power lines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bill's willing to pay for this, so it wouldn't come out of our budget. It's just a matter of permitting it. And I don't.
Yeah,
would we have to do a determination, or can we do an emergency? I guess it's not a super emergency, but do a determination.
Well, the Board of Health can just issue you your permit. Just go to the Board of Health and they'll issue the permit to have them trapped out. And then we can then, I guess, issue something to breach the dam to let the water run out or something.
Should those two activities be very in sync time-wise, so that way you don't get rid of the dams, but the beavers are still there for a little bit?
Yeah, I imagine they would go in and do it all at once, or at least trap the beavers first and then breach the dam.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Diane, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, who is the person who would, Beaver Solutions is who we would usually contact for.
Well, he may have his own trapper that he uses. Beaver Solutions charges for trapping it like everybody else does. Yeah, okay, there you go. Whoever, yeah. I mean, a lot of people do it. So whomever, since you're hiring them, I would use whomever you feel, best.
I've used Malcolm twice before, and he does an excellent job.
Yep. All right. Malcolm does a lot of that.
Yep.
Mary, this is. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Mike. Mary, could you kind of determine or recommend what kind of filings required here for the water management and breaching the dam? And I'm not sure if whose property that the different dams that need to be breached. Who owns that property? They would probably need to be contacted as part of the permitting, I think, right? I don't know how many different parcels are involved here, or property owners are involved.
Yeah, I think Bill was gonna reach out to his neighbors, correct, Bill, and get letters of permission.
Yes, I have a landowner consent form that was provided by the Board of Health. So I'll get them to sign off on this.
Is that for trapping, Bill, or trapping and dam removal?
I'll read it to you.
Oh, that's well, yeah, feel free, but maybe you can modify it and just add water management or something like that to it, if it's not already there.
Well, it's kind of a general statement. I give permission to whoever to access my property for the purpose of alleviating a threat to public health and safety posed by beaver or muskrat, as determined by the Board of Health. So I did go to see Diane Tiernan, and she wanted me to start with your commission first.
Well, thank you for coming to discuss this first.
Happy to.
So what's our overall recommendation?
Just go to the Board of Health and get your trapping permit and get your documents signed by the landowners and be on your way, I guess.
If
we could give him an emergency cert potentially for this work. That's what I did for VFW on Depot Street for breaching that dam.
Right. And I think that would be good for the breaching of the dams, because that is our area other than the Board of Health. So you would need both of them. So Mary, can you work on that?
Yeah, maybe we can have a motion to issue that, and then I can issue that for him once he gives me from the landowner approval.
Okay, we have a motion to issue the necessary paperwork to allow the breaching of the dams on the areas we discussed.
So moved.
Do a second?
Second.
Let's do a voice vote. Chris, aye.
Tom, aye.
Alan, aye.
David, aye.
Sandy, aye.
Mike, aye.
So Alan, did you vote?
Yes,
Yep,
he did.
Alan's an aye.
Okay, we have a unanimous vote of the members present to issue the paperwork to allow the work to remove the dams. Okay, so is that all you needed from us, Bill?
I believe so. I'll stay in touch with Mary, and I'll follow the process through the Board of Health, and I'll do my part to get the neighbors to consent, and we'll be ready to go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, and now our next hearing was a notice of intent, Robertson Family Conservation Restriction, installation of a trail bridge and boardwalks. Did we already read the notice of intent for this one?
We did. I just noticed that Dave just joined on, and Dave, Governor's Landing did request to continue again. And I put them on June 28th.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. What time on the 20th?
We did not give them a time. Do you want to pick a time for them?
How about if we do 8 o'clock again?
Okay.
So there's something short going first. So if we go back up, what about the Robertson family conservation, construction, and installation of a trail bridge and boardwalks? Are you skipping that?
No, I think Mike had some stuff on this one, and we've already opened this hearing, so.
Excellent. That
Yeah,
was our
I can speak a little bit. Within the packet is kind of a response to comments. The DP made some comments on this filing quite a while ago, and you know, we've been looking into what to do here. Most of the issues involve the wetland boardwalks, which would alter about 240 square feet of BVW. Most of that alterations is shading impact. DP kind of gave us two alternatives. One was to build a mitigation wetland, and the other was to use helical piles to support the boardwalk rather than other kinds of sleepers like paving blocks or wood, you know, pressure treated timber, which is typically what we do. So the replication alternative really isn't feasible for a number of reasons. There are several performance standards that we couldn't meet for wetland replication. And then also, you know, the impact area is several hundred feet off of Warren Street. Just can't really get there without doing a great deal of damage with equipment. And also we would have to most likely ask the Robertson family for permission to build the replication wetland, and also the DCR, which co-holds the conservation restriction. And the DCR, I actually a week or so ago I asked them to just, they were looking into this conservation restriction issue, and I asked them just to put that on hold, so they weren't wasting their time trying to figure out what to do. I personally, speaking as kind of the representative for the Land Stewardship Committee, and Marcel is not on yet. I'm not sure. I don't see her, but I would recommend.
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Marcella. I would recommend we go with helical piles. But you know, Mary has suggested this at the Land Stewardship meeting a while back, that where possible we could, as sleepers, we could use native stone already located on site, rather than paving blocks, say. So if we find enough of those stones, we might be able to greatly reduce the number of helical piles we need. And those helical piles could be a real pain in the neck to install, just because this is a very stony area. And you have to somehow drive them, you know, a couple of feet into the soil at just the right location. Mary, do you have any? Mary and I had a talk earlier today. Mary had went to a conference, and this issue was somewhat discussed there.
Yeah, if you want, I mean, one option, this is a DEP comment. If the board wants, the board does have their own authority to interpret the law, and the board could interpret the law to say that, this 30 foot of square feet of direct soil contact is not going to adversely impact the wetland. It's similar to, say, a tree falling down. And you could not file the DEP suggestion, just with knowing that DEP might decide to look at this and say, well, we're going to issue a superseding order because we really feel strongly about helical piles. We just have to, in our decision, just state our reasoning for why we decide, or why the board decided to do that. So I think it's up to the board. And even if the DEP does issue a superseding order, obviously it takes work for them to do that. Then you could still go with the helical pile option that they suggested. So.
So here.
I guess then the DP also has some concerns about impacts to riverfront vegetation caused by the trail bridge, which is a different location. And I found a couple of things in the regs, which I think covers us for any impact to vegetation within the riverfront caused either by the trail bridge or a new trail. So I don't really think that's an issue. There's a couple of sections from the regulations that cover trails and riverfront. So, and then the last maybe issue with the DEP is, or thing that the commission needs to think about is, right now we have a conceptual plan for the trail bridge. We will be putting out a request for proposal for an actual engineered design or a stamped plan. And then the question becomes, do we need to just handle that submittal informally, say it could be a requirement in the notice of intent that that the actual final plan be submitted to the commission for review and approval, or you could require a new notice of intent.
Or maybe an amendment to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, or amendment. That would work too. And with that, I mean, if there's any questions, Marcel and I can try to answer them. I would ask after this discussion that the hearing be closed and that the commission issue an order of conditions with whatever conditions they feel is appropriate. As I'm kind of the applicant here, or the applicant's representative, I will abstain from any vote here.
So I guess the decision points are whether to go with the helical piles in the first section, like DEP recommended, which is challenging, or to say that it's not a significant alteration. And then the other decision point is how to deal with the fact that the plans aren't done yet, whether that to condition that in the order or require an amendment or a new submission. I think a new submission I don't think that's really necessary. But yeah, and maybe perhaps an amendment would be appropriate.
Any other comments? Now, Mike, do you envision the paperwork and the plans coming in a reasonable amount of time? So that way we're not eating into the 3-year window.
Yeah, hopefully we'll start working on design with a request for proposal this summer.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I believe Mike requested to close this hearing as the representative. So
I guess I would like to hear some guidance on how the commission would like to proceed in terms of the first issue, whether you guys want to go with the DEP recommendation of helical piles, or make your own decision knowing that the DEP might supersede it.
Let's go rogue.
What is the difference here if we go with helical piles or something else? Just the cost?
Yeah, the helical piles were a lot more expensive. I mean, the Land Stewardship Commission has always done the boardwalks the same way with the sleepers and but I don't think we ever put it through review to the DEP, so we didn't realize that they didn't like that. So yeah, but the helical piles are expensive.
I'll just add for Stephens, for the trail system Stephens, we actually built a mitigation area for the impact there.
Yeah.
But that's I think most of the other ones have been requested determination.
How many helical piles I needed, Mary or Mike?
Well, it really depends how much we can use native stone instead of a helical pile. I think I counted it up. Worst case, it could be like 16. I don't think we're going to need that many, but that would be worst case, and something like 16 plus or minus. I can't remember exactly, and they're about $60 a piece. The helical piles to purchase them, and then, like I said before, you need to be able to install them at fairly precise locations, which could be challenging.
Do you want to take another look at the site and just confirm that using stones makes sense? I think it does. I think that there's a lot of stones there to work with, and there are places where we probably wouldn't need to do a whole lot of moving stones around at all. But I'd like to confirm, if we do need to make some adjustments to the project, confirm that we have what we need there before we commit to the helical piles, or we could do some mix of the two.
And Mike, we're using stone. Would you need some kind of machinery to go in, or no?
No, these would be stones that could be moved around by hand or with a iron bar. Typically, when we do these with pavers, it's just like basically a 1 foot by 6 inch wide typical concrete paver. That's all we really need to to support the boardwalk. Another whole option that SVT has used is to use double-walled conduit, basically, PVC conduit, like about 8 inches in diameter, and they use that as their sleeper. We've usually used pressure-treated wood as sleepers, but or stone, concrete blocks. But we could also consider using those PVC conduit. SVT seems to like that, using that. But again, I don't know how. I think we would. I don't think we'd have to install 16 helical piles. I think we could probably get away with quite a few less than that. Till we actually go out there and start to lay the thing out carefully, we won't know.
Is it possible to board it in the order of conditions such that either stones or the PVC or helical piles can be used upon further investigation? So it leaves it open for all three.
I would be comfortable with that.
And maybe also in the statement, maybe say, I don't know if we have separate condition, but upon further research into the project, have it reviewed again by the Conservation Commission, just to see that we all agree that one or the other or a combination would be what best.
You know, I guess I have a question about the PVC conduit. I think that would be this, in the DEP's eyes, that would be the same as the pressure treated, my guess.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I was just kind of trying to explain what other people have used. Not proposing that here. We're not proposing concrete blocks either. We're proposing just the helical piles or native stone, moving around native stone as needed.
Are there other items we need in the order of conditions for the site?
Yeah, unless anyone has any comments, I'll require an amendment for the review of the plans.
If we need erosion control in the area of the work.
For the trail bridge, yes, and that was mentioned in the NOI narrative. I don't see any need for erosion control in the boardwalk area.
Okay. Would there be any ongoing conditions or anything in perpetuity?
Well, there's, yeah, I'm not sure that, I'll have to look through the conditions. I could draft an order for us to review at another meeting.
Okay.
I'm thinking most of the standard conditions would not apply for that. But, I'm thinking about doing an amendment. I guess it's exempt anyway. It means, another $110 for an advertisement and whatever. There is some cost to that. If you keep the public hearing open, which you can do, but then you just have to keep continuing it till the plans are done, which might be a pain. So, but I think considering we haven't seen the plans at all, I think an amendment is the appropriate next step.
I would hope to close it just so we could begin to work on the boardwalk this summer during the dry season.
Okay, so that sounds good.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. And Mike, as the representative, expresses the desire to close this hearing. So can we have a motion from the commission to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, and we'll do a voice vote. Chris Scott, aye.
Tom, aye.
Alan, aye.
David, aye.
Mike abstains.
Sandy, aye.
All right, so I'll try to draft an order. It may not be for the next meeting though.
Okay. So with that said, we'll continue working on the order of conditions and issue that as soon as possible. And what I would say now, because we have a little bit of time for our next hearing at 8:30, is I know that Michael is here. Listen to our discussion about 2 Dogwood Drive and a request, a draft letter to request the town council's review through Joe Lang. So, Mike or Mary, do you have the document to put up?
Yeah, I'll pull it up in a minute here.
Okay. And while we're waiting for Mary to do that, what I'd like to remind people is if you are wanting to speak, please just let us know your name and your location so we can put that in our minutes.
Is Mike going to present this?
I could talk about it, but Bill and I both drafted this together. Bill, a lot of this text is Bill's work.
Okay.
And I'm here and I'm happy to speak to it. So, which I'll go ahead and do then. So there are 3 easements over 2 Dogwood Drive that were created primarily to permit access from the Dogwood Drive to the town's conservation land behind the homes on Dogwood Drive. 2 of them were created by Crosswinds, the developer. There's a 30-foot wide access easement and then another 50-foot wide access easement. It was referred to initially as the 50-foot wide access and utility easement. But in any case, there's those 2 easements. And then later, the 3rd easement was created by the owners of 2 Dogwood Drive, and that was intended to be used in lieu of the 50-foot wide access easement, which you can see from the display of the easements essentially passes right over their front yard. So if you go back to the easement pictures, the first one, that's you can see the 50-foot wide one passes over their driveway very close to the front of the house, which really wasn't going to work. So the owners and has created the other one, which they refer to as the pedestrian easement, and that easement leads up to the 30-foot wide access easement. Those 2 taken together should provide access to the conservation land in the rear. There are a couple of issues, however. The access easements created by Dogwood were done by reserving the easement rights when they deeded the land to the owners of 2 Dogwood Drive. And they specifically refer in that deed, so the deed between Crosswoods and the owners of 2 Dogwood, to the use of those easements for access purposes. When they deeded the easements to the town, they did so as part of deeding Dogwood Drive to the town. And that deed refers to the use of those easements for utility purposes. It does not specifically state as a use in that deed, so the deed between Crosswinds and the town, that the 50-foot wide utility easement and the 30-foot wide access easement are also to be used for access to the land, the conservation land. So one of the questions we have for council is whether or not that means we don't have an access easement over the 50-foot wide and the 30-foot wide easements. We need to resolve that issue. The Crosswinds did also reserve the right to convey the easements to any other easements to any other party in the deed between Crosswinds and the owners of 2 Dogwood. So another question we have is, can Crosswinds now deed us the access easements? They left off the deed to the town. And furthermore, can they deed us additional easement rights I mean, typically in a case like this, we're deeded the right to create and maintain the trail. So we want to know whether or not Dogwood could deed us that right as well. In addition, or basically modify the access right that they originally created to include maintaining the trail. So those are those, and then everybody recognized that the 50-foot wide easement wasn't appropriate for accessing the 30-foot easement. So the owners of 2 Dogwood had some discussions with both the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board about an alternate, which I think everybody agreed to in principle. And then at some point they deeded the pedestrian easement you see on this plan to the town. However, that deed was not accepted by the Board of Selectmen, which is typically actually what needs to be done when the town is accepting a property right. So one of the questions for town council is to confirm, in fact, that we need to fix that, that the town has to in some way accept the pedestrian easement. There's also no evidence that I can find in the Conservation Commission meeting minutes that the owners of 2 Dogwood ever asked for comments on the easement that was created. And there's some flaws, or at least one flaw, in that the entrance to it off of Dogwood is mostly on a fairly steep stone outcrop. So not very conducive for access purposes. I think I'm assuming that if we had known that, we would have tried to relocate it in a way that would have made it more acceptable. And then finally, I think it's important for us that what we want to talk to council about is all of the easements simply refer to foot access, basically. And again, they don't talk about maintaining the trail. And I think it's important that we understand what, rights we have to maintaining the trail, especially in light of the fact that the pedestrian easement currently has pine trees, which effectively block the easement. And we're going to have to trim the pine trees in order to provide easement to the 30-foot wide, and then back to the conservation land. And I just want to know that I'd like to be sure that we can go in and cut or trim the trees, and that what happens if the one or more of the trees is damaged by that activity, in terms of what responsibilities or obligations we may have to the owners of 2 Dogwood.
Mary, could you go to the pictures too, just so people can see what? There is the outcrop Bill was talking about, and the orange line is probably the 10-foot wide easement. So it's basically, the outcrop is basically centered on the easement. You could possibly walk just to the right of it, but it's certainly not optimal. And then the last picture, I think, just shows the pine trees as they exist now. One other little wrinkle is Bill did that overlay that is a few pages up, and from that overlay, it looks like actually some of the fence right there, some of the fencing is actually on railroad property. It's another little wrinkle here.
Can I make one clarification for either Mike or Bill? If the pine trees were pruned or trimmed, the trimming pieces would be removed from the site. It would not be left there.
Yeah, I think we agreed that would be done at the last meeting. Yes.
Okay, just so we had that in the minutes if anyone had a question.
Yeah, I mean, it would take some fairly significant trimming. Those are, those pine trees, as you saw in the other picture, are fully, they're conical, so you're talking about taking probably 6 feet off the rear side of each of those trees if you're going to have the trail go between the trees and the fence, which I think is the preferred solution, really for everybody. I don't really want to walk in front of the trees. I think the trees were put there in part, hopefully, to shield the house from people using the trail.
Well, given this this overlay, if we were to keep the trail between the fence and the trees, we would be trespassing on railroad property. So
I would caution you not to read too much into that, to the way this lines up. I will be the first to admit that this is by no means an exact science, the way I was doing things. And so it's very possible that the boundary is of the fence is the boundary between the railroad and the 2 Dogwood Drive property. But it does demonstrate that the pine trees are right in the middle of the easement, no matter how much you move it.
Yeah, but Bill, this is Alan. When we did that field review and I drew that diagram there, we observed that between the bounds there, that the fence was, right, what visually appeared from the ground to be on the railroad property. So I think you drew the diagram accurately because that reflects what we visually saw on the ground.
Okay, so that makes it more likely that in fact the fence is on railroad property and Marcella's concern is a valid one.
And Bill, your overlay lines up pretty well with the granite outcrop on Dogwood Drive too. So, I mean, it looks like you did a nice job lining things up.
It took me a while, but yes, I'd like to believe, yep, that's the case.
with that outcrop, I mean, assuming this is going to be the access, we could probably put some kind of step, do something with that so that it would be a little easier to negotiate. But we're still dealing with the issue of going sort of cutting across their property where Alan's suggestion at the last meeting of rerouting the easement altogether so that it comes in between this property and their next door neighbors, so that we're not like having a trail coming through, dividing up the area where they have a seating area and the rest of their lawn. I don't know how feasible that is, but I think it might, improve things, as far as
their property is weird. It looks like it goes all the way around.
Yes,
it's odd. So if you would have to cut in through here or something, walk a long way.
I have another comment to make. It turns out that 1 Dogwood and 3 Dogwood have another access easement, which straddles the boundary between the 2 properties, which appears to me to have been intended for access to that that cone shape. That's town land.
right.
But yeah, so that cone-shaped thing which abuts the road in the back there and is behind 1 and 3, that is town land. That's an open space parcel. So it's conceivable that we could, and that we'd have to do some ground truthing, but it's conceivable we could have a trail that comes through the property that the cursor is almost on right now, and runs behind 3 and 1. And basically all the way around to the town land, the open space. Yeah, I think that the 2 Dogwood Drive got reconfigured like that because I don't know, it had to do with the fact that the road across Station Street or continuing dogwood across Station Street never materialized.
Well, it'd be interesting to bring that option to the owners of 2 Dogwood, because that might actually, they might like that better, because it means that people are less likely to park here, and they would just be behind. It might be an improvement for them. I don't know. But of course that would require moving their fence.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of things that we can talk to the owners about, different approaches to trying to find a solution that is more acceptable. Before we start down that path, I think it's important that we understand what we have today.
Have we discussed all the things that are relative to the letter for the town council?
The only thing I don't think I captured explicitly in the letter was whether or not what the impact of trespassing on railroad land would be. I mean, I understand what it would be, but how we would go about resolving that and what we could do is to fix it. I just think it's important that council knows that part of there's an issue there, that's all.
I mean, if we were to plan that pedestrian access, the fence would be on the inner side, kind of screening pedestrian use from 2 Dogwood, rather than on the more or less on the property line.
Yeah.
You know, potentially the commission could, you know, if we can ever get to the point where, you know, we can have conversations with 2 Dogwood, perhaps, you know, we could offer to move the fence or build a new fence.
We don't really know, though, if it is on railroad land or not.
Well, it probably would have to be surveyed, although we do have some bounds there that we could take off of. So, but even if the fence is not on railroad property, if you were starting from scratch, the place we want to put a fence would be on the inner side of the pedestrian easement rather than the outer side. I would think, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
At this point, do we have any comments from the audience? If someone would like to speak, just tell us your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name's Tanner Femia. We're from 126 Elm Street. I'm just listening for my grandfather. I didn't know if you were addressing me or not. That's why I'd been listening.
Oh, no. You're more than welcome.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we need to address, when we have another break, we can address that question too.
Not a problem. Thank you.
I think our goal for today was to review what we would like to ask town council and discuss any other things we identified. So are we at that point? Because we can always come back to this in a little bit. So we have an 8:30 hearing, which was for a different location.
Mike and Bill, do you feel like this is ready to go before town council?
I do. I would maybe actually make a motion that we submit this package of information to Joe, asking for a town council opinion.
I would
second.
Are we taking it to a vote?
Yes. Yes, we are. We need a second first.
Oh, I just seconded. I'm sorry.
Let's
So
do a voice vote.
Marcella, aye.
Marcella, aye. Miss aye.
Alan, I.
David, I.
Sandy, I.
Mike, aye.
Thanks to Mike and Bill for pulling it together.
Right. We appreciate all your hard work on this. And just for the public's knowledge, we've not made any decisions as to what would go on at the location. We're only reviewing what we would ask town council. So,
All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to jump off now.
Thanks.
Okay, with that said, I think we should go over to our 8:30 request for determination of applicability 10 Warren Street in addition to a single family house. And Mary, do you have the newspaper ad?
Yeah, I can read that.
Okay, thank you.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act that the Upton Conservation Commission will hold the following public meeting on Wednesday, June 14th, 2023 at 8:30 p.m. A request for determination of applicability filed by Jonathan Rose for the construction of an addition to a single-family home at 10 Warren Street. All interested parties are invited to participate.
Okay, is our applicant here?
Yes, I am on.
Okay, could you please describe your project?
Yeah, we're doing a family room addition with a half bath off the right side of the property where there's ample room. You know, you kind of see this is the survey. Yeah, exactly, right there. We're doing it right off the right side of the property. I think it's like 24 by 16, I want to say. And I think it's about 87 feet from the wetland in the back lot of my house.
Yeah, so the wetland is on this lot right here. This is School Street, Warren Street. The wetland's not on his lot, but the wetland, you can see that the addition is 47 feet from the property line. The wetland's over here. As you said, 86 feet from the addition itself, and probably 70 feet from the disturbance. And I have a few pictures. So work has already started on this project. This was caught through the building permit application process. So here's the house. The addition is going in here, and I had him put up some silt fence. The retaining wall also acts as a little bit of erosion control. And you can see foundation is underway. And just a look, this is standing at the property line looking in towards the BBW. Everything's really very flat and gentle. So the main concern here is making sure there's erosion controls. I did want to ask, I forgot to ask John, are you thinking of putting in a dry well, or what are you going to do with the gutters for this?
I haven't got that far yet, to be honest with my GC. I'm not sure.
And I was trying to tell your current house, does it, do you have some kind of, it looked like the gutter may be going into the ground into some kind of system, or is it just going out on the lawn?
No, it's going under the ground.
So there's already some kind of dry well or some kind of system at your site?
Yes. So it'd probably connect to that, but I haven't got that far with my GC. I'm not sure what we're doing.
Okay. So yeah, I took a look at the property. It's existing single family home. All the work is in existing lawn. The wetland was delineated as a part of Bill Andrews' project on School Street. So there were no real issues with the delineation, and it was a pretty simple project. I didn't really think you probably wouldn't need bounds here, because the property line is maybe about 25 feet from the wetland, or perhaps 30. So something for the board to think about. I don't think it's necessary. The recommendation is to issue a negative determination of applicability.
Okay, do you have any questions or comments from the commission or residents attending? Hearing none. Mr. Rose, would you like to close your hearing?
Yeah, I'm all good if everyone else is.
Okay. So do we have a motion to close the hearing from the commission?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, let's do a voice vote. Chris, aye.
Tom, I.
Alan, aye.
David, I.
Sandy, I.
Mike, aye.
Marcella, aye.
A unanimous vote of the commission. So the paperwork will be forwarding to you, and then you'll hear from Mary about when the paperwork's ready and when you can actually start the remainder of the project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your help, your attendance. Okay, we have 8:40, which is discussion for 343 Menden Street.
It looks like Matt's here.
Yep. How you doing?
Good. So at the last meeting we had discussed, Matt wanted some more time to think about getting a conservation restriction on his property as opposed to certifying the vernal pool. So Matt, have you thought about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna pass on the deed restriction. I'm all set with that. Doesn't really interest me right now.
Matt, let me ask you, what is the status? I know in the front we're gonna get everything kind of settled. Is it okay if I come by and do a site visit to see if that's in order?
Yeah, I saw that email earlier. If I'm here, I'd love to have you over.
Yeah, at this point, it probably will. I'm going on vacation for a while, so it probably wouldn't be till early July. Have you seeded or planted anything in there yet?
Yeah, I put some clover on the slope. I'm just waiting for it to come up.
Okay. It might be good for me to wait a few weeks anyway to see if it's coming in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the board needs, Matt doesn't really want the conservation restriction. I think the board is still concerned about the vernal pool, what to do about that. I think the other option we had offered was, getting the vernal pool certified.
Yeah, Mike, in terms of certification, means Conservation Commission staff to do that, or Conservation Commission members. There wouldn't be any cost to the owner. So just want to throw that out.
Can you say that again?
Is it too late, Mike, in this year to do that?
Right. It would be. What I said was Conservation Commission staff or commissioners could could do the certification. There wouldn't be any cost to you, Matt, to do that. And to answer Chris's question, yeah, it would have to be done next spring. It's too late.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Was that a question or?
I guess it was. I mean, it seems like you're not in favor of the deed restriction. That's fine. You did, to be honest, in the front, fill that's been placed there went further. If we had done this as a permitting process, I'm not sure we would have allowed the fill to go as far as it is right now. Maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't. So I think just as a kind of a compromise, I'd like to ask you if you had any problem with that vernal pool being certified. Simply by with no cost to yourself, or at least give the commission the permission to certify it. Should we want to?
Maybe in the spring.
Well, the spring is when it would be done, because we would look for egg masses, wood frogs, salamander egg masses. There's a form that you need to fill out and submit to Mass Natural Heritage. I mean, we've got, I don't know, a couple dozen certified vernal pools in town, probably.
Yeah.
I guess so. It's not something that's not unusual.
Okay. Maybe in the spring we'll revisit it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things we got going here, Matt. Would probably, if you want to agree to, I'd like to get this enforcement order closed out for you. So if you're kind of like, well, I'm not sure, then I think the enforcement order stays open till the spring. If you can come up with an agreement, if you're willing to give us an agreement now, and once everything's stabilized and looking good, then I think the enforcement order, could potentially be lifted or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how the commission feels. Maybe we just want to leave it open until it's everything's done.
Oh, you're muted.
What are the?
Sorry. I'd like to be able to close it out as soon as possible once the vegetation stabilized, like Mary suggests, and just as part of the closeout, just have give the commission the ability to certify the pool next spring should we want to.
What's the downside of keeping things open?
I don't think there's really a downside necessarily. It just keeps it on the list.
Then we can just close it out and revisit in the spring.
Well, I think part of closing it out would mean confirming that the pool would be certified. If you want to wait until spring to make that decision, I think we'd have to keep it open, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
It opened, Matt. You would not need to come to every meeting between now and then.
Right.
So that's
as much as I know what kind of fun you're having.
Yeah. All right. So
is that the feeling that you have to just keep it open and then revisit in the spring?
It's fine.
And Mary, would you be able to check at some point to make sure the clover is established?
Yeah, I'll stop by and get a status update on that. And so we'll just I don't know that I know the March meetings yet, but we'll put you on an agenda for like the first meeting in March, I would think.
Yeah, I'd actually like to make a motion that we close it out as soon as it's stabilized, with to certify the vernal pool next spring. That's my motion.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what your motion was.
I'm sorry. It's I make a motion that we close out the enforcement order as soon as the slope is adequately stabilized with vegetation, with the provision that the owner allows us to certify the vernal pool next spring. So that's the motion. I personally would just like to think everyone would benefit if we just had a path forward to close this out rather than having to discuss this next spring again.
Do we have a second? It's Mike's motion.
Well, don't we need the approval from Matt to do that? I mean,
That's what I'm asking for. Maybe the motion wasn't accurate, but I was trying to ask for that. It would be part of it.
Alan, you're making a motion for something that Matt doesn't want to do. So how can we vote on that?
So Matt, what would you like? Would that be reasonable to you to close this out? And once the vegetation stabilized, and then we'll certify the vernal pool in spring.
Is it up to me to certify the pool in the spring?
Nope, we'll do it for you.
Oh.
We're just seeing if we can get your
Yeah, I'm not going to sign any paperwork for that right now.
Okay.
Maybe we can keep it open until the spring.
Okay. So open till the spring. That's the feeling of the owner. So we'll keep that for the spring. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we're all set with this discussion. We appreciate you.
One other thing, Mary, has the DP been informed of this situation? Do they have a copy?
Yeah, actually, I believe when the complaint first came in, I was out of the office and somebody called DEP. Yeah, I mean, an enforcement order has been mailed to DEP. Yeah, it could be that I could call them and see what they would recommend. I know in Webster once we had a very difficult situation, and I'm not saying that this is difficult, but we ended up recording the enforcement order against the deed because we had no Zilcho cooperation from the homeowner. They weren't even showing up to meetings. That was an expense that we undertook. I don't think this is at that point, but since we have a long time in between, I don't know. Or I could call the DEP and see if they had recommendations or what they would consider.
My concern is that the certification is a very small ask. It really isn't, a big ask. And we have been fairly lenient about the fill in front. Mm-hmm. So that's it. I'm going to not say anything else.
All right.
Just to add a couple of points, to certify a vernal pool is not that difficult. Because I've done that before with high school students. And it was easy.
Okay.
So, Mary, could you contact the DEP just to get their feeling on this, please?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And should we leave this on for our next, well, not our next meeting because Mary's not going to be here, but the one on July 12th, so that way we can hear about what the DEP said.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so on July 12th, how about if we say 7:25? So you would not be last minute. Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, I think we're all set with your discussion, Matt. Thank you for coming to discuss this again.
All right, thanks.
Okay, have a good night.
Too.
Okay, thank you. So I think what we can do is go through our other items here. If we go up to the top, administrator's report.
Chris, I'm wondering, we have someone here from 126 Elm Street, and maybe we can take care of that.
Oh, okay, sure. What 126 Elm Street?
Right. So the backstory is this is a already approved order of conditions, and they would like to do a modification. And let me just find the plans and show it to you.
Why do you have to be annoying at our building?
Let me see if I can zoom in here. And find the piece of paper which described the changes from the engineer. All right, so Gary, there were some changes to the plans, and they took the house and they made it smaller. So now they're, instead of having 1,672 square feet within the 100-foot buffer, now there's only 1,311 within the 100-foot buffer on the house. So they made it smaller. And they pulled it further away from the wetland. So the approved house was 52 feet from the wetland, and now it's going to be 53 feet. Or no, 57.3, which is this line right here. And then they changed, they moved the septic slightly so that it could have straight pipes. It had been not straight. And then they made some minor grading changes. So in all, it's beneficial in that it's smaller and slightly further away. So they wanted to know if we would approve these changes as a minor modification as opposed to requiring them to go through the amendment process. And since everything is reduced in size and smaller, I thought that was appropriate. So if the board agrees with that, then we would just need to vote to approve a minor modification. And Hunter is here if we have questions on their plans.
Do we have any other discussion or questions from the commission?
It seems reasonable.
Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none from the commission, we have a motion to accept the changes without another filing or amendment.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
let's vote. Chris, aye.
Tom, I.
Alan, aye.
David, I.
Sandy, I.
Myself, aye.
So that's a unanimous vote of the commission.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good luck with your project.
Thank you. Finally getting moving, I hope.
That's good.
Yeah, we had some sickness in the family, so we had some pausing of the time. We just, like we said to Mary, we just want to keep you guys all up to date and happy and make sure everything is going forward. We don't want any more issues or anything like that.
We appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you guys again. We appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, how about we go back to the new items? How How about the Reed property appraisal?
Yeah, I want to talk about that a bit, and maybe Bill can jump into. But I sent basically the contract that Gail Mann prepared. Gail has signed it. Town manager has not signed it. I sent it to him right after our last meeting, and have not heard back from him. Gail Mann has been wondering what's going on. Last email I had with Joe was he asked me to send it to him again, and I asked him to contact me or Bill if he had any questions, and it has not been signed. So, Mary, have you heard anything about this? Are there any issues with this that you know of?
No, I imagine he just was trying to manage too many things and probably just needs a reminder.
Could through the chair, the rest of the commission, could we ask Mary to do that? I'm a little bit given up.
Hey,
So
I'll stop by his office. Sometimes a person is harder to ignore than an email.
Yes, thank you, Mary.
That's a good deal, but I think it'd be nice to show some progress to the owners of the Reed property, and also Kathy Robertson. She has her radar on this one too.
And how about 110 Christian Hill Road, stormwater permit?
All right. Yeah, this one, I can pull up some pictures in my agent report. So I think we've discussed this before, and your consensus was that it was a neighbor dispute. Mike, the planner, did ask me to bring it before you again, because there's two issues with it. There's the stormwater issue or the flooding issue, and then there's an issue with dirt piles, which could fall under our stormwater bylaw. So let me just find where it is in here. Okay, so at the far corner of their field, this is 110 Christian Hill Road, the compost facility. So this would be at, I think that would be the western and northern corner of their field. They've dug a kind of an area to actually retain water so that I'm actually not sure what the purpose was, but they dug kind of a hole, and it does have it's kind of like a pond, and you can tell that water collects here during rainstorms. We happened to go after it hadn't been raining, at the end of that last dry period, so there was nothing. And you can see that it usually collects there, but sometimes it overflows. I think if you get a really big storm, it overflows. And then there's a pretty good channel through the woods, which goes 50 to 75 feet. And it kind of dissipates after a while. But according to the neighbor, and he did send me other pictures, which I have in my email, but eventually ends up going by his house. And I think this was probably just a really bad storm. He had pictures of 4 inches of water, like 3 feet wide, going past his front door. As you can imagine, I think we had a 2-inch storm earlier this spring. It must have been from that storm, which probably a lot of people had water flowing everywhere, because this area is actually quite a distance from his house. I mean, it's like 400, 500 feet. And I think I had brought this up before, and you guys thought it was a civil matter. I just wanted to mention it again, since I had been out on the site and kind of seen what it looked like. So, it appears they're trying to retain the water. They did certainly create this area, but then it overflows during a bad storm. And then this is standing kind of from near that pond area, looking towards Christian Hill Road. There's the trees along the road, and this area is just, a ton of dirt piles. They have been and this is kind of more of a planning board issue, is that a, commercial use of the property, they're stockpiling dirt from an excavating operation. But where it comes under conservation is that, we have a stormwater bylaw, which says if you're stockpiling dirt, that you need to get a permit with us for doing that. At this point, so we could ask them to do that. At this point, they've been stockpiling it there for years, and most of it is covered with lovely grass, so it's pretty stable. The long-term intent with the property, they say, is to get rid of all this and, subdivide and sell. But to me, it sounds like a pretty long-term plan, like not just a 1-year plan, maybe a 5 or 10-year plan. So and that they're gonna still keep some dirt stockpiled on the property. So we could just say, hey, why don't you get a permit for stockpiling your dirt? That might be appropriate. So I guess I was looking into if the commission had any input or comments on that.
I would agree with asking them to get a permit, because for the time I've lived down the street from them, from 110 Christian Hill Road, there's always been a lot of dirt. And I don't know how much composting, but it seems like a lot of soil goes there and then moves away and then comes back. And there are lots of trucks going there and moving the soil away.
Yeah, and so that ties into the planning board issue of whether it's actually a commercial use, which it kind of looks like it is, but we can certainly ask them to get a stormwater permit for the stockpiles. I think that would be appropriate.
I'd question that as well, being a commercial thing, because there are so many trucks that go through there.
Yeah.
I've not sat there and counted them, but there are many different ones that don't seem to be going there for just one individual's need. Do you have other questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Bill. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Go for it.
So they basically have created something of a retention or detention basin.
Yep.
But it's not deep enough for severe rain events.
That's right. Maybe they need a permit for that too.
But could they alleviate the budding landowners issue by building a better basin?
Maybe they need to make it a little deeper, thinking, or.
But that being said, based upon what I've heard from here, and I've had conversations with the budding landowner and looked at our bylaws, it seems to me that the 110 has created a nuisance on the abutting property, and it's really up to the code enforcement to enforce our nuisance bylaw.
Okay. You think it would qualify as a nuisance?
Well, now you've been on the abutting landowner's property. I have not. He's mentioned to me that that trees have died as a result of the water running over the property. And he does have pictures of the water approaching quite close to the house.
Yeah.
He claims that it may be doing damage to Taft Street and the property on the other side of Taft Street. Yeah. So if you take all those things together, I would say, yeah, it could be construed as a nuisance. But there are no wetlands on the abutting property, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, there actually, there might be a wetland behind the people who live below 110 Christian Hill Road. I think there's a wetland back there, actually. In fact, this pond, I was on somebody else's property at this point, so I didn't want to go too far, but I believe this kind of ended in what, I didn't bring a soil auger in there or anything, but there was a whole ton of ferns. It may be a small isolated wetland or BVW. And I believe there's permits for the house, 2 houses down, they had put in like a detached garage. I think they went through conservation for that. And I think the wetland, there is kind of wetland kind of in the area, maybe not within 100 feet, but.
But this runoff would have to somehow be endangering that wetland to be within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. No?
Yeah, it may travel through it, but I'm not sure that it's hurting it.
Yeah, so and I agree that I don't think there's any jurisdiction here for the Conservation Commission, in my opinion, based on what I've heard. I have talked to like I said, I've talked to the abutter, and he's really frustrated.
Yes, I actually spoke with him also probably a year or two ago about the same issue, and I came to the conclusion you did, that there's nothing for us to do here. But your suggestion of it being a nuisance, I thought was a pretty good one.
And where Bill's talking about the activity being a nuisance, when it gets warm in the summer, there'll be more people thinking there's a nuisance with the new houses that were built right across the street.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's actually, I think, almost specifically a nuisance on his property. And the way he described it, it was created because the owner of 110 regraded his property in effect to have the water flow off of it. Now, it sounds like he did try to alleviate that or mitigate that to some extent by creating something of a detention pond. I think initially there wasn't anything to restrict the flow off the property, but I don't know that for a fact.
I just did a quick check of the town's open space map. That property may be in Chapter 61. You might want to check that and see if there's anything regarding Chapter 61 that could be applied. Depending what Chapter 61 it's in, I mean, is stockpiling soil allowable use on a Chapter 61 property? I don't know.
That's the 110 property.
Yeah.
That's a good. I'll look into that.
Yes, the parcel on Christian Hill Road. Yeah.
Yep, I'll look into that.
Yeah.
Right, so I will mention to Pat Roach that perhaps it could be construed as a nuisance, and we'll go ahead and I'll ask them to submit as a stormwater permit for stockpiling the soil at the minimum.
Okay, thank you. And how about 85 Crockett Road violations?
Right. Yeah, so this is another property that code enforcement is going after. And they asked me to kind of research it and see if there was anything that conservation had against this property. And so I just went through what I could find. So it appears that they have 2 open orders of conditions for retaining wall and possibly for the house. I couldn't exactly tell what the orders were for. And neither of them have certificates of compliance, so we can ask for them to get certificates of compliance on that. And then it looks like in 2010 there were we had them start to go through the Chapter 91 process, and I found the Chapter 91 plans in their folder. But the way they have their docs configured today, and I'll see if I can get the pictures of that, is not at all what's on the plan. They have, extra features, which is not allowed. So we could ask them, to remove those features or to apply for a Chapter 91 permit on those features. And that is a lot of work. And let's see if we can zoom in and get a look at this. The extra stuff. So this is about as close as I can get on this. You can see better on your map, but this, I believe, is like a kind of a little boathouse that's in the water, and that's not on their Chapter 91 permit. And I'm not sure that those things are even allowed under Chapter 91. I never saw those on Webster Lake. There's a few of them on this lake here, so evidently they think it's okay. I just don't know. And then this dock here, Chapter 91 docks, they're only allowed to be 4 feet wide. The idea is you're not having a platform. You're not supposed to have a deck over the water. It's supposed to be a dock. So you can have a U or whatever, but it can't be solid like this. So that dock is non-conforming. They shouldn't have applied for that. So just kind of wondering, and then there's a lot of construction debris, etc. They're stockpiling a ton of stuff on this property that, has been sitting there for a while. So if you guys are okay and approve, we can ask them to get certificates of compliance on those old orders of conditions, which hopefully we can find the order and figure out exactly what they're for. And so we can issue certificates and then ask them to make sure they're in compliance with Chapter 91 and to provide their Chapter 91 permit to us. So just so that we know that they have the correct docks, especially since this one, it looks like it's impinging on the neighbors. You're not allowed to have any structure that's, close to your neighbor's line.
Do we have any discussion?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask if, do you know, Mary, would that dock be subject to the setback requirements as well?
Oh, our conservation setback requirements?
No. Basically, the building setback requirements. I mean, it looks like it would be because according to the boundary lines here, it's on the neighbor's property, but typically there are 10 or 15 feet setback requirements along the boundary of a piece of property.
Yeah, so in the water, I'm not sure if the land ones apply, but in the water, I think it has to be at least 18 feet. The Chapter 91 regs is you have to be 18 feet off your neighbor's property line with any kind of dock or structure. And ideally, your docks are centered on the property. In this case, they have 2 docks. This one's probably okay. These locations are probably okay. The configuration's not right. Yeah, that'd be a good question for code. I don't think the building setbacks apply in the water. It's an interesting question. So the plan, once we write a letter to them, they have code enforcement already wrote a letter about a month ago, and they've been wanting me to add my letter to the pile. And they haven't had any response from the owners. And once I write mine and there's no response, I think in the middle of July or toward August, Mike the planner intends to, just bring the town lawyer in and just really get this thing moving. I guess that's the intent.
Mary, with your letter, could we send a certificate of mailing so that way you have proof it was mailed to them?
Yes, I would do that.
Cheaper way. I think it's $1.30, and it goes directly to their house, and so it's not like the green cards. It's green cards. People can
Mary, I suggest that along with the letter, if we can find copies of the orders, and send them to the owners too. They may not even have those orders conditions anymore.
Yeah, and we have the orders, but in the old orders, there's never really a description of what it's for, which drives me crazy. You can't see, whether it's to build the house, and I'm not sure that the plans were recorded. So
maybe the plans are in the file and they could be included. I mean, the order should have referenced a plan,
Yes.
and just maybe we can find those too.
Depending on how old this project is, there might be information in the minutes.
Yeah, that's true. I should check minutes. Definitely. I think what did I say they're from? They're from, the first one is from 1994, so it's old.
Oh, wow.
So what I'll do is I'll draft a letter. If you guys I'll send you, maybe, I'm not sure we need to, I'm thinking since it's going to be a while since I'm back, maybe I'll email it around, and maybe we can conceptually approve, outlining these complaints, and I'll email it around for comments. But if I don't have any comments, I could just mail it out, before the next meeting, or before the 12th, that is.
If you have any comments, just send them directly to Mary, so we don't have a town meeting issue or open meeting law issue. So comments to Mary are encouraged, but don't copy.
That's everyone.
Any commission members.
Right. So don't do conservation member.
Right.
So thank you, Mary. That sounds like an interesting one.
This is Bill. I have one more question. I'm curious. It's just for my own information. So I think you say here twice that the order was not recorded, or you couldn't find it.
So let's see. No certificate of no. Okay, so in 1994, that order is recorded, but there's no certificate of compliance. This 1995 order, which I found in the file, I couldn't find that it was recorded under the street address. Yeah, it doesn't seem to have been recorded.
And the same is true for 1996, or is that? Well, my question is does the order need to be recorded before the work can start?
Technically, yes. So that could qualify as a violation.
Right, and then and it is the applicant's responsibility to record the order.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Although at this point, I don't know whether we want to bring that up or not, but we can have him get those recorded. They should be recorded to be on the deed chain.
Just tossing stuff out. Can we just potentially issue an enforcement order and require a new filing? Just throwing that out. I don't. Seems like something to think about. Maybe take a look at near map imagery for the last. I think we have it back to 2014 and see what changes have happened in the last 8 years. More work for Mary. I'm sorry. If
yeah, no.
Consider that.
That's a good idea. Check. Yeah, my sense is they haven't been doing a lot, although maybe the docks has been adding on, slowly expanding. And certainly they're stockpiling junk there, which that could be our issue because it's within the 100-foot buffer, but it's also under building as nuisance. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's just something else I could ask DEP about is, if you have this really old stuff that's never been resolved, do you go ahead and issue an enforcement order for that kind of situation?
That's a good question. So is that our plan of action for 85 Carver Road?
Yeah, I don't know whether you guys want to make a motion for me to I can go ahead and write the letter. I mean, the letter can be the first step. And we can consider whether we can still write a letter and consider doing enforcement later.
Okay, can we have a motion to allow Mary to write a letter to 85 Carket Road and point out the issues that we have for that at this point? Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, Chris, Scott, aye.
Tom, I.
Alan, aye.
David, I.
Sandy, I.
Mike, aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous vote of the commission. And under our new items, we had also building permits or other site visits while Mary's on vacation. How would we like to deal with that?
I was just wondering, Grace is going to be kind of covering, and she won't really be able to go out and do site visits because she's covering for Amy too. She's busy. Amy's gone right now. But if there's one person who kind of wants to be on call or two people that she can know to reach out to, I don't expect too many site visits. 126 Elm might, and there was another one. There's somebody who is working on their erosion controls. And the other one to keep an eye on is Five Forks Farm because they're actively working right now.
My thought was to have Grace send out an email to conservation member, and then we can have people commit to doing the building permit sign off and circulate that to everyone as well as site visits.
Sounds
So
good.
it doesn't fall on one person. Does that sound reasonable, Grace? Does anyone have a different idea?
Perfect. That's perfect.
Okay, so we'll all share in the fun. Okay. And so now can we go up to administrator's report?
All right. I think we've covered most of it, but I'll pull out my agent report and see if there's anything else. Oh, I know you asked me to look at that maple at 108 Grove Street, and it's interesting. It's a Freeman's maple, which is a cross between a red maple and a silver. So that I learned something new, and that was interesting. But they're not invasive. They're native. So
Good.
And yeah, work is commenced at Five Fork Farm. And the homeowner called about, maybe I forwarded this on, someone who lived on Glen Ave was concerned about the water level dropping in Zack Pond. And I guess DPW is breaching or taking care of beaver dams. And they had a permit through Board of Health, but we didn't hear from them. So I guess I should follow up with Diane or Dennis to see exactly what they did.
How much was the water drawn down?
18 inches.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that people who had their kayaks out and they were a little disappointed that they couldn't get out. I did hear back from Knowlton Circle, the homeowners association. They are going to look into getting a stormwater person to inspect the system, and they were going to get back to me. So that was positive. And we had the third grade from Memorial in on, I feel like I haven't, even though there's 3 weeks between meetings, there was a lot of extra stuff. And this was one that we spent one day with third graders.
Wow.
Yeah, we had, I don't know, 10 or 15 groups of 8 kids come through the conservation office, and I had a few plants there, and we talked about why wetlands are important. And so hopefully they learned a few things.
Yeah, we had 90 in total.
Was it 90?
Yes, we had a voting exercise at the Historical Society, and we had 90 votes at the end of the day.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Nobody voted twice? No voter fraud?
That's after I took out the duplicate votes.
Somebody tried.
They were having so much fun. The ballot box rings a bell when it accepts a ballot. And there were a couple of them that really wanted to hear the bell again.
All right. And soon you guys will be hearing about the conflict of interest training. You guys can go ahead and do it. I just did it, and they improved the test. The test used to be pretty hard. Test is easier, but you have to listen to everything now. And I went to the MSMCP annual meeting, which is kind of a networking group of other conservation agents, and Grace went along, and that was good. And let's see if there's any pictures to look at that we haven't seen. 166 River Street. So we had been talking about this. The homeowner would like the town, of course, to take some actions on the beavers. And the question was raised, could we put a pond leveler in? And this is kind of the pond. I don't know much about pond levelers. And this is the situation. There's the culvert. There's a gate over the culvert, but the beavers have blocked that. So.
Well, does Mike Callahan come and do periodic inspections of the ones we have installed? Could he come take a look at the site when he's here next?
Yeah, Mike checks, he has to check our sites every year because we pay him for that. I mean,
right.
they can call him, because what it looks like he'd have to do is he just has to kind of build out around that culvert. But they can call him and, and hire him to do that or modify it.
I think that
Yeah,
would be
and
ideal.
I asked Dennis about this. He thought the town maybe had helped with the beavers in this place, and Bill had, Grace and I did a bunch of research, but I didn't find anything super conclusive in the deeds. There was a lot of deeds referencing this.
Yeah, so the culvert goes on under a shared driveway.
Right. Yeah, and here's the other side. Yeah, it's a shared driveway. It's not the town road, but the town holds an easement over this to get back to the building and back.
And the pond extends onto another property.
Yeah, so that looks like it's kind of the homeowners, at least from what you said, it looks like that's kind of like the homeowners issue. And, you can give them Mike Callahan's information, just Beaver Solutions, and Mike can come out there and give them, an estimate on what to do, and he'll tell them whether or not he thinks it'll work there or not. So, I mean, that's, I think, what we can do. It's under the shared driveway. I don't think that's a town issue.
The only way, one way it might be a bit of a town issue is there is a conservation restriction on the property.
Yeah.
Lots,
this portion here, I think, is under restriction. The pond is.
It is, yeah. It is. So you might ask that whatever plan they develop, or maybe Mike Callahan develops, that they just run it by us for compliance with the conservation restriction.
So is that if the board all agrees that it's most likely the homeowner, I can tell her that.
Do you need to vote for that, Mary?
Doesn't sound like a thing.
I don't know that we need to vote for that.
Okay. Because if it's not affecting a road, it's really not a town thing.
And arguably the whatever expense there is should be shared by the 3 homes that are on the shared driveway.
Yeah. this is the property with the bounds that the contractor was super cooperative and he moved the bounds. You know, we had asked them to do that 3 weeks ago and he did it within 2 weeks.
Oh, great.
I know, very, very cooperative. So that was
Wow.
wonderful. And here's Five Fork Farms. I know Mike had been asking about their silt fence. Got a pretty extensive silt fence there. And that's it, except for one more thing. KP Law, the Dean Pond restriction, she sent out a final version, and just the stuff in yellow is what she added, basically specifying more about the horseback. She may travel by horseback to Clayton Farm Road using a path on the dirt access road across previously cleared area. And the dirt access road is basically kind of going up to the stormwater basin. It's not really a road, but it's a path. Maybe I should have her change that to path. And the licensee is expressly prohibited from traveling across any environmentally sensitive land. And that was a good point she brought up. You know, she needs to stay kind of on that path and not just take her horse through the wetland, which is next door.
Mm-hmm.
I think those were the only changes, and she did want a vote on this.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, can we have a motion to vote on the document modified by KP Law?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, let's do a voice vote. Chris, Scott, aye.
Tom, aye.
Alan, aye.
David, I.
Mike, aye.
Marcella, aye.
Sandy, aye.
Okay, that's a unanimous vote of the commission.
I think that's it for me.
Okay, great. And how about administrative report?
First, Mary and I have been working on some minutes from the fall, so we have 4 sets of minutes to approve. I can share my screen. These are the 4 sets. I sent out today the most recent set of edits from the minutes from the last meeting. I'm not sure if we want to do a separate vote per each set of minutes or just one motion for all 4.
Did anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes from 5/24/23? That was the most recent. If there are none, we could probably do one vote for all of them together. So we have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from September 28th, October 12th, May 24th, and September 14th, 2022.
So moved.
Wait a second.
Second?
Okay. Chris, Scott, aye.
Tom, aye.
Alan,
Sandy,
aye.
aye.
David, I.
Mike, aye.
Marcella, aye.
Okay, excellent. Good job getting all of those done.
Then for financial report, here's our expense voucher. The last 3 expenses are Mary's mileage for the months of March, April, and May.
Okay, we have a motion to pay our bills.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
let's do a voice vote. Chris, aye.
Tom, aye.
Sandy, aye.
David,
Mike,
I.
aye.
Alan, aye.
Okay, thank you for putting together our bills.
Then here's our balance sheet.
So I think the main thing to note is there's still $1,000 in the general expense fund,
Oh,
although I think Grace was going to pull my mileage out of there, so it'll go down a little bit. But if there's something you guys wanted to buy, I immediately thought of more dirt for the community garden, but we don't really need that now. We need it in the fall. So
Yeah, I think if we need to spend some money down, that would be a great place to put it. I was looking at the beds today, and most of them are kind of low, so
yeah.
people could surely use the soil, even if they've already planted. They could put it in the fall. But and I don't anticipate there being a parking issue if it gets put in the same place as before. I think we'd have a higher demand for parking if there's once it snows, and we might need the extra space then. But right now, I don't really see, the parking lot is pretty wide open, and Mike just mowed it today, so there's plenty of area to park there. How much was spent on the previous load of soil?
Yeah, and actually I need to submit a reimbursement for that because I did it on my credit card. I forgot about that. That was it was like between 250 and 300 for 5 yards. I think we could have gotten 6, which is a full dump truck, 6 yards for a little over 300, like 310 or something.
Okay. Well, that would be a fine place to spend it down. There's also some additional lumber that could be, but that's a small purchase. I talked to Donna today, and she thinks it'll, be fine for another year. But next year we'd have to replace the board, and I'm sure that next year there'll be more things needing replacement. So if I can hold off on a lumber order, I'd just as soon wait till next spring when we might need more for the community garden. But again, if we're spending down some funds, I can, we can order some lumber, but dirt would be good.
Yeah, it ends up being, I think the only issue is having the people, they spread most of that pile in just one work day with like 5 of them. So that would, we could do another, it's having the people who are willing to spread it. But yeah, the beds, they really need, most of those raised beds, the double raised ones, we never got filled. So
yeah, those are probably the most important ones to keep up with, because the people who take on those higher beds might have physical limitations that would prevent them from loading the soil there on their own. So I'd like to see those topped off if we could.
Yeah, I have a thought if we need to spend the general expenses down a bit. Rockwood Meadows, the entrance to the parking lot, we haven't really talked about what to do there, but one idea that I think Scott had last year was to put up some simple fencing, just to kind of confine the entrance and the exit. Cars, especially when they're leaving Rockwood Meadows and going towards Hopkinton, they tend to cut that corner pretty severely and come pretty close to the tree that we planted. Last winter, fall winter, we put some straw bales there to kind of confine the space so that, but those straw bales actually disappeared this spring, so they're not there anymore.
How about rocks?
Well, yeah, I guess that's possible too, but I think it's something that we should do before this fall, before the next snow season. And I think if we went with post and rail fencing, which should be pretty easy to install there, because when we've dug holes there in the past, they've been pretty easy to dig. It might cost around $300 to get them from Miller Fence. I was thinking 4 posts and like 4 rails. Yeah, 4 posts and 4 rails.
And we'd be doing the installation?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's more of a land stewardship decision, but land stewardship's not going to meet until next fiscal year. So.
I wouldn't have a problem making the expenditure. I just want it to be something that isn't going to get like knocked down by a plow or something that'll hold up, or I don't know why people would take away straw bale, but they're not going to take rocks away. And but that would probably mean like hiring Greg to move some rocks around for us. So that would be a higher expense than the fence.
And aesthetically, the fence might look a little better, and we probably should run it by, as a courtesy, run it by Rockwood Meadows.
Yeah,
folks,
yeah.
If we decide to do it, I just like to have something there by next winter. Those straw bales that they took, by the way, they took 2. And then I lifted up the 3rd one, and the thing probably weighed about 75 pounds. It was sopping wet. But someone came back and stole that one too. It was just.
I have a hard time believing someone would. I wonder if someone just thought that they had been dumped there or something. They may not have looked deliberate enough.
They had snowflakes sticking out of them. Anyway.
They wanted it for mulch.
Yeah.
Well, I would make a motion that we spend the money to buy the materials for putting up a fence, assuming that the Rockwood Meadows Homeowners Association is okay with that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's go voice vote. Chris, aye.
Tom, aye.
Alan, aye.
David, aye.
Mike, aye. Oops, sorry.
Sandy, aye.
Marcella, aye.
Excellent. It's a unanimous vote of the commission. And Grace, do we have anything else under your report?
Nope, that's it.
Great job. Okay, how about open space?
I don't have anything to report this evening.
Okay, land stewardship.
I might cut you up on the bridge and the boardwalk at Robertson's. Got some workday. We have a workday scheduled for Saturday, but it looks like it might rain, so we'll probably be pushing that out. But the trails, things are growing in. The trails that I've walked in the last week, both at Stephens and at Warren Brook, there's places where the trails need to be trimmed back. So we do need to get a trail date happening. And if anybody else is out there, noticing properties where we need to do some work, let me know. And we can add that to the list for our upcoming work dates. And we did mowing at Stephens today, which was good. It hadn't gotten too horrible yet, but it was on the verge, and the DPW kindly loaned us their equipment to do that with, and looks pretty good there now.
Excellent. Okay, do you have anything under ongoing items to discuss? Hearing none, should we move on? Okay, so at this point, can we entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
By second. Let's do all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, aye, aye. All right. Good night, everybody.
Excellent.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace and Mary. Mary, have a great
Thanks,
vacation.
everybody.